I transmigrated into a childhood sweetheart romance novel. The heroine chose the male lead who entered her life later, even going so far as to cut ties with her childhood sweetheart. Only that boy remained trapped in the love that had taken root during his youth, longing for someone he could never have. The novel itself developed consciousness and sent me to save him. So from the age of 17 to 27, I stayed by his side for a full 10 years. On his 28th birthday, I waited for him with a heart full of joy. But the heroine was reborn. When he remained unreachable for an entire night, I finally understood. Everyone hoped that the devoted second male lead in the novel would find someone new and live happily ever after. But no one ever considered that. Other than the heroine, he wanted no one else. So it was time for me to leave. Chapter 1. The first time I met Grant was on the school's rooftop. He leaned against the railing with his head lowered, his expression hidden from view. The setting sun slanted across him like shattered gold dust, casting a long, lonely shadow. Beside him sat a small cake. The frosting was already melting, and a cherry had sunk into the cream. Today was his 17th birthday. Every year before this, he had spent his birthday with his childhood friend, Cindy. After school, they would sneak up to the rooftop together, holding a cake as they watched the sun disappear beyond the horizon. On his last birthday, Cindy had smiled and said to him, "When you turn 17, I want cherry cake." Grant kept his promise, but she broke hers, because Mason, the male lead who suddenly entered their lives, had appeared, and the story had officially begun. This world was a coming-of-age romance novel. Mason transferred into their school and became Cindy's constant rival and companion. As their bond grew stronger, Cindy fell for Mason's rebellious and charismatic personality. In the end, she gradually drifted farther and farther away from Grant, her childhood sweetheart. The novel was extremely popular, but almost all readers agreed that Mason was not the right match for her. He was a wealthy second-generation heir and a notorious playboy. Even after getting together with Cindy, he continued entangling himself with other girls. Because of this, the two of them broke up and got back together countless times. At one point, Cindy even dated Grant out of spite just to make Mason jealous. Filled with regret, the male lead desperately fought to win her back. Eventually, the two of them got their happy ending. Only Grant remained trapped in the love that had taken root during his youth, longing for someone he could never have. Readers felt deeply sorry for him and demanded that the author give him a perfect ending. I was one of them. Then one day, a strange poll suddenly appeared on my phone screen. The question was, would you be willing to save Grant? Without the slightest hesitation, I selected yes. The world spun around me. When I opened my eyes again, I had arrived in this world. A voice told me that it was the will of the world and that, among all the people who had voted, it had chosen me. The reason was simple: I was an orphan, and my feelings toward Grant were completely sincere. If I succeeded in the redemption mission, I could choose whether to remain in this world. I would also receive a considerable fortune. Well, it wasn't really about the money. I just felt sorry for Grant. Besides, I'm firmly on the childhood sweetheart side. In my eyes, the gentle and loyal Grant was infinitely better than that playboy male lead. Perhaps making Cindy realize her true feelings and return to Grant would be the greatest salvation for him. So I made my decision. I was going to bring them together. Chapter 2. I suppressed my excitement at breaking through the boundary between worlds. Slowly, I walked toward him and held out my hand. "Hi, I'm the new transfer student." He lifted his head. The lingering glow of the sunset drifted through the breeze, brushing against the dark hair falling over his forehead. Light and shadow reflected in my eyes, outlining the features of the handsome young man before me. Our eyes met, and that moment became a memory frozen in time. The next day, the homeroom teacher introduced me from the front of the classroom. "This is our new transfer student, Monica." Thunderous applause erupted throughout the room. Everyone was welcoming and enthusiastic. Everyone except the main cast. I spotted the male lead immediately. He glanced at me once before turning to Cindy and whispering something. The corner of his mouth curled into a lazy smile, carrying that rebellious, bad boy charm. Cindy rolled her eyes at him, but her fair cheeks flushed slightly pink, making her look both adorable and sweet. Across the room, Grant stared blankly at their playful interaction, his eyes dimming. Slowly, he lowered his gaze, His long eyelashes cast shadows that concealed the bitterness in his eyes. The only empty seat is next to Grant. Why don't you sit there? The homeroom teacher smiled. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught Cindy suddenly stiffening. She looked up at me for several seconds, her gaze carrying an unreadable scrutiny. My instincts told me she wasn't happy, but I was. That meant she felt a sense of competition, which meant the childhood sweetheart pairing I shipped still had a chance. I walked straight toward Grant. Instinctively, he glanced at Cindy, only to find her still chatting and laughing with Mason, as if she didn't care at all who sat beside him. I noticed his hand gripping the edge of the desk so tightly that his knuckles turned white. Even so, he politely moved aside to let me in. We meet again, Grant. I smiled innocently, my eyes shining. To anyone watching, it looked exactly like the gaze of a girl with a crush. Sure enough, Cindy's eyes immediately drifted our way. Grant nodded slightly. After a pause, he asked, "Weren't you the one who said you were a fairy?" The temperature in my face instantly shot up. I nearly lost my smile. Ahem, I was joking. Don't worry about it. The day before, taking advantage of being a complete stranger, I had effortlessly gotten him to open up, pointing at the nearly melted cake. I had asked with a grin, "Is that for your girlfriend?" He shook his head, as though recalling something. The cold lines of his face softened slightly. "It's for someone I like." I was surprised. That straightforward? Want to tell me about it? Maybe I can help. A self-mocking smile appeared on Grant's lips. Perhaps his feelings had nowhere to go, or perhaps he had been bottling them up for too long. To my surprise, he actually revealed the deepest secret hidden in his heart. I asked why he didn't confess his feelings. He said Cindy had always seen him as a good friend, and he was afraid that confessing would only push her farther away. Seriously, if only you'd just say what's on your mind. I looked at him in frustration. Don't worry, I'll help you. Grant glanced at me. Who are you? Proudly puffing out my chest. I replied, "You can call me a fairy." Grant was speechless. Grant asked how exactly I planned to help him. I lowered my voice mysteriously. A wise master always has a plan. Chapter 3. Step 1. Make Cindy feel a sense of competition. That part was easy. While filling water bottles in the hallway, I casually walked over to Cindy, pretending to be innocent. I asked her about some of Grant's likes and dislikes. I played the role of an admirer perfectly. Her smile immediately became a little forced. Sure enough, after filling her bottle, she went straight to find Grant. Through the classroom window, I saw Grant's eyes light up brighter than I had ever seen before. Step 1 was probably a success. Step 2, appeal to her type. After school, I dragged Grant to a trendy fashion store, holding a pair of ripped jeans and a leather jacket. He looked deeply conflicted. Doesn't this seem a little unsuitable for me? Suitable? Of course it's suitable. Maybe this is exactly the type Cindy likes. After all, Mason dressed like this. When Grant came out of the fitting room, my eyes widened. I became even more convinced that Cindy liked guys with this kind of style. Otherwise, why would she fall for Mason? Grant completely outclassed him. His long legs seemed almost too long to contain, and the leather jacket emphasized his broad shoulders and narrow waist, giving him an even cooler and more striking appearance. As the sales associate showered him with compliments, the tips of his ears turned slightly red. He looked uncomfortable from head to toe. A smile spread across my face as sweet as someone enjoying their favorite dessert. He was so adorable. After we left the store, he rubbed the bridge of his nose. Should I walk you home first? It's my mom's birthday tonight, so I need to get home early. The words of refusal instantly caught in my throat. Suddenly, I remembered. On the night of Grant's mother's birthday, Mason took Cindy to a bar. Their first kiss happened today. No wonder Cindy wasn't going home with Grant. Once I confirmed that Grant knew where the bar was, I grabbed him and started sprinting. He asked me why we were going there. I silently complained in my head. For your happiness. Obviously. Because after tonight, the relationship between the male and female leads would advance at lightning speed. And by then, Grant would truly have no chance left. By the time we reached the entrance of the bar, I was gasping for air. Can you finally tell me why we're here now? Still struggling to breathe, I pointed toward the bar. He looked over. His eyelashes trembled violently as he froze in place. I looked up as well, and my eyes nearly popped out. In the alley beside the bar, Mason had Cindy pinned against the wall. They were standing extremely close, closer and closer. Their lips were only moments away from touching. I immediately shouted, "Hold it right there." Both of them stiffened and turned toward us. The moment Cindy saw Grant, the color visibly drained from her face. Her eyes darted away, and she instinctively moved behind Mason. Mason let out a mocking laugh and pulled Cindy forward, looking down at Grant arrogantly. "What? You think copying my style will make Cindy like you?" I couldn't help interrupting. "Copying your style? Anyone with functioning eyes can tell Grant is way more handsome than you." Mason shot me an annoyed look. "And who exactly are you supposed to be?" Cindy tugged lightly at his sleeve. "Grant and I are just friends." "You're overthinking it." Mason casually draped an arm around her shoulders. "You think I don't understand how guys think? But a coward who can't even confess his feelings isn't worth my attention." Grant paid no attention to the provocation. Instead, he grabbed Cindy's wrist and pulled her toward him. "Cindy, we're going home." But Mason tightened his grip on her. "Without my permission. Do you really think she'll leave with you?" I frowned. This male lead had absolutely no respect for other people's choices. The next second, Grant punched him square in the face and sent him crashing to the ground. Consumed by anger, veins bulged visibly at his temple. "Does she need your permission? What do you think she is? What were you trying to do to her?" I quickly rushed forward and pulled Grant back. Meanwhile, Cindy hurried over to help Mason up. He rubbed the cut on the corner of his mouth. Instead of getting angry, he laughed. "If you don't believe me, ask her yourself." Grant looked at Cindy, like a wounded beast staring at the last remaining ray of light. "Cindy, please come home with me. He's not a good person." Avoiding his gaze, Cindy took a step backward. "Grant, we're just friends. My business isn't your concern." I couldn't even bear to look at the expression on Grant's face. He stood frozen in place. His eyes suddenly reddened to a frightening degree, and even his voice trembled. "Friends? I don't believe you don't know. Grant, enough. We will only ever be friends. Just go home." As if trying to cover something up, she immediately grabbed Mason and headed in the opposite direction. Mason glanced back over his shoulder. A provocative smirk curled across his lips. As for me, without hesitation, I raised my middle finger at him. "Excellent." He stopped smiling immediately. Chapter 4. Grant stood frozen in place. His fists clenched so tightly at his sides that his knuckles turned pale. His bangs covered his eyes. A tear slipped silently down his face. I panicked. Well, maybe Cindy was just speaking out of anger. Don't take it to heart. The more I spoke, the less confident I became. It felt like I had ruined everything. Honestly, forget redeeming him. I'd be lucky if he didn't hate me. "I'm sorry." Grant turned his head away and wiped at his face hurriedly. Then, to my surprise, he gave me a faint smile. "You didn't do anything wrong. This is my problem. Let me walk you home, or your parents will worry." I shook my head. "I can get home by myself. I don't have parents. So don't worry." He froze slightly. Then he quietly apologized, realizing how that sounded. I waved my hands frantically. "No, that's not what I meant. I mean, I'm an orphan." "Wait, that's not." The more I tried to explain, the worse it sounded. But what could I do? My current identity was an orphan too. A smile suddenly appeared on Grant's face. The corners of his eyes were still red. I instinctively swallowed. That was completely unfair. How could someone look that attractive while smiling through tears? "If you don't mind, come have dinner at my house tonight. My mom likes having company." I blinked. Okay, sure." It was the first time a friend had invited me to eat at their house. The feeling was strangely new. His family was incredibly warm and welcoming. It was obvious that Grant had grown up in a loving home. Maybe that was why he had become such a gentle and outstanding person. During dinner, Grant's mother looked at him and asked, "How come Cindy isn't here?" He paused. Just as he was about to answer, the front door opened. "Auntie, I'm here." "Oh my. Cindy, come in. We've been waiting for you." Cindy's smile was sweet and bright, but the moment she saw me, it froze. Her tone sharpened with unmistakable accusation. Why are you here? There was hostility in her eyes. Maybe other people wouldn't notice, but as an orphan, I had spent my entire life reading other people's emotions. I immediately sensed it. For a moment, I didn't know how to answer. If she still had feelings for Grant, then disliking me would be understandable, but she had already rejected him outright. So why was she acting like this? Perhaps she viewed Grant as something that belonged to her. She didn't want him herself, but she didn't want anyone else to have him either. A wave of irritation rose inside me. For the first time, I felt that the heroine wasn't nearly as innocent as the novel had portrayed her. Grant spoke calmly. Monica is a friend I invited. We're just having dinner together. Cindy stared at him in disbelief. Slowly, her eyes reddened. Grant picked up his glass, but his fingers trembled slightly as he forced himself not to look at her. Love was restraint. He had chosen to retreat to the position of a friend. I sighed inwardly. The problems between them seemed beyond anything I could fix. Chapter 5. After dinner, Grant walked me home. Halfway there, Cindy caught up to us. She looked emotionally unstable. Tears filled her eyes as she shouted at Grant. You like her now, don't you? Grant's fingers twitched slightly before falling still. He deliberately adopted a detached tone. You said it yourself. We're just friends. If you can like Mason, why can't I like someone else? This was a battle between immortals. Why drag me into it? Cindy stared at him. Large tears rolled down her cheeks one after another. I don't care. You can't be with her. If you do, we're not friends anymore. Grant looked at her without blinking. In his eyes were despair, hope, and pleading all at once. I can choose not to be with anyone. He paused. Then can you choose not to be with him? Cindy lowered her eyes. She didn't answer. The damp night air felt suffocating. Grant squeezed his eyes shut. Then he laughed bitterly at himself. I understand now. He grabbed my wrist and turned away. This time, he didn't look back. I stared blankly at the side of his face. The warmth of his hand lingered against my wrist. A voice deep inside me whispered, Grant deserved someone better. So, I didn't want to bring them together anymore. After that night, Grant and Cindy entered a cold war. Rumors gradually began spreading through the class. People said that I liked Grant and had forced Cindy to stay away from him. My classmates started distancing themselves from me. The looks they gave me became strange and unfriendly. I didn't care. As an orphan, being bullied and looked down on had always been a normal part of life. Compared to that, this was nothing. But my relationship with Grant kept getting better and better. He brought me breakfast. He ate lunch with me. He walked me home after school. Meanwhile, the way Cindy looked at me grew darker with each passing day. In her eyes, all of this was proof that Grant liked me. But he didn't. He simply pitied me, an orphan, a girl being isolated by everyone else. I knew exactly what it was. It was sympathy. Chapter 6. After school, I returned home and was just about to unlock the door. Suddenly, a group of delinquents rushed out from the alley beside my building. Leading them was Mason. They surrounded me. Mason grinned with his usual bad boy swagger and bent down to meet my eyes. You've managed to distract Grant. That annoying mutt. Technically, I should be thanking you, but Cindy can't stand you, so I guess I'll have to teach you a lesson instead. I glared at him furiously, silently cursing the so-called will of the world for not giving me some kind of cheat ability. Oh, got some claws, do you? Mason laughed mockingly. With a wave of his hand, the delinquents stepped forward with sinister smiles. I glanced toward the doormat. Hidden underneath was a kitchen knife. It was a habit I'd developed growing up. I never expected it would actually come in handy. Just as I bent down to grab it, one of the delinquents suddenly screamed. I looked up. My pupils contracted. Grant! Holding a brick in his hand, he had charged straight into the fight. Outnumbered, he quickly fell behind. Mason drove a vicious kick into his side. Grant's face instantly turned pale, cold sweat breaking out across his forehead. And you actually showed up? I've been sick of you for a long time. Let's see if I don't beat you half to death today. I yanked the knife from beneath the mat and rushed forward, placing myself in front of Grant. Come on, then, let's see who dies first. I'm an orphan with nothing to lose, so I'm not afraid of you. The entire group immediately backed away several steps. None of them dared come closer. Mason's face darkened. "You'd better watch yourselves." Then he and the others ran off as fast as they could. I helped Grant into my apartment and treated his wounds. While cleaning the cut on his forehead, he hissed softly in pain. Our eyes met. My heart skipped a beat. The cotton ball slipped from my fingers and fell to the floor. Panicking, I quickly looked away. Why did you come here?" He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small teddy bear keychain. "It fell off your backpack. I thought I'd return it. Then I saw them." He paused. "Living alone is dangerous. Be careful." I smiled. "Didn't you see me pull out a knife? Who's going to bully me?" A quiet laugh escaped him. It wasn't loud, but it echoed powerfully in my ears. True enough. His eyes softened. "You're amazing." My heartbeat accelerated uncontrollably. I didn't even dare look at him anymore. A strange emotion began growing wildly inside my chest. And yet, I wished this moment could last forever. Chapter 7. Mason was taking Cindy abroad. Cindy was determined to leave. When her parents refused, she went on a hunger strike. In the end, they had no choice but to give in. It was the first time I had ever seen Grant look so defeated. Standing on the rooftop, he leaned weakly against the railing. His usually straight posture was slightly bent. "What am I supposed to do?" His voice was painfully hoarse. "What can I do to make her stay?" Each word struck my heart like a hammer. For the first time, I understood what heartbreak felt like. It really did make it hard to breathe. Slowly, I walked over and asked him, "Do you really love her that much?" Grant slowly tilted his head back. His eyes were filled with pain, yet there wasn't even a trace of hesitation. He answered, "Yes." I went to find Cindy. I told her that Grant and I were not involved romantically. Everything we had done was an act. We only wanted her to realize her feelings and come back to him. "Grant really cares about you. I hope you'll think carefully about your decision." The look she gave me became a mixture of pity and mockery. "You've fallen for Grant, haven't you?" My throat tightened. I couldn't answer. "If you like him, then go after him. I'm not stopping you. So why are you here trying to guilt-trip me?" Though whether Grant would ever like you is another matter entirely. Based on how well I know him, you'd better not waste your time. Looking at her expression of absolute victory, I suddenly felt furious. Why was she so unwilling to be with Grant, yet so confident in trampling on his feelings? It was as though Grant existed merely as a trophy she could show off to others. I stared straight at her. "Then just wait and see." Ignoring her stunned expression, I turned and walked away. At that moment, I finally understood the name of that unfamiliar feeling growing inside me. Love. I loved Grant. And this time, I wanted to be selfish. I wanted to save him myself. Chapter 8. And so, for a full 10 years, I stayed by his side. The person who celebrated his birthday with him every year became me. Little by little, I became part of his life. Grant's parents loved me as if I were their own daughter. Our coworkers called us the perfect team. Our friends would secretly ask when we planned to start dating. I could feel it. Grant treated me better and better with each passing year. And this time, it was no longer sympathy. My reflection in his eyes grew clearer day by day. We watched movies together, watched sunrises together, rode Ferris wheels together. Countless shared moments built something that was more than friendship but not quite love. Everything felt natural. The only thing missing was a catalyst to break through that final barrier. During a gathering at a friend's bar, I decided to confess my feelings to him properly. I'd had a little too much to drink. I could barely walk straight. Grant carried my bag in one hand while supporting me with the other. His tone was helpless yet gentle, carrying a trace of affection. "I told you not to drink so much. You insisted on showing off." Alcohol gave courage to cowards. Without thinking, I shoved him against the wall. We were so close that our breaths intertwined. His body stiffened. His Adam's apple bobbed. When he spoke, his voice was slightly hoarse. "Monica, what's wrong?" I took a deep breath. "Grant, I..." A phone ringtone suddenly shattered the atmosphere. He glanced at the caller ID. His eyes trembled violently. Even his fingers shook. Understanding immediately, I stepped back. He quickly walked to the side and answered the call. The plot had finally reached the point where Cindy returned. unable to tolerate Mason's constant flirting and cheating. She came back home. Then she would deliberately date Grant to make Mason jealous. In the end, Grant would once again become nothing more than a disposable tool. My fingers curled tightly. This time, I wouldn't let that happen. After ending the call, Grant looked uneasy. Sorry, is it okay if I ask Xiaohu to take you home? I asked quietly. Has Cindy come back? He hesitated for a second before nodding. Guilt surfaced in his eyes. She's alone at the airport. I'll just take her home. I looked at him and said softly. Be careful. Grant seemed to secretly breathe a sigh of relief. Then he hurried toward the parking lot. At that exact moment, a text message arrived on my phone. He will only ever belong to me. My heart suddenly felt as if someone had clenched it in their fist. An overwhelming sense of dread swept through me. Then the voice of the will of the world echoed in my mind. The heroine has been reborn. Chapter 9. The novel ended with Cindy and Mason's wedding. But after the words "the end," real life had only just begun. After marriage, Mason truly seemed like a changed man. He abandoned his reckless habits and became a devoted husband. When Cindy became pregnant, she grew increasingly sensitive and insecure. She secretly followed Mason and discovered that he was indeed having an intimate affair with his secretary. During a heated argument, Mason accidentally pushed her. Cindy suffered severe bleeding and went into premature labor. While giving birth, she finally realized something. The playboy had never changed. He had simply become better at pretending. Only then did she begin to miss Grant. Only then did she realize how good he had been to her. And only then did regret consume her. That was how she was reborn at this point in the story. I sat motionless on the sofa for an entire night. A profound sense of helplessness enveloped me. Now that the plot had changed, the heroine had finally recognized the value of the devoted second male lead. Everything was moving toward a perfect ending. It was as if even fate couldn't bear to see Grant's love wither away alone. So fate granted him a second chance. But luck had never favored me. Grant and I completed a major project together. As usual, we planned a day out to relax. This time, however, there was one extra person. Cindy. She was still lively and mischievous, as though time had never left a mark on her. Monica, it's been so long. You're even prettier now. Cindy smiled brightly, as if no conflict had ever existed between us. I returned a polite smile. Thank you. Grant walked over carrying the movie tickets. This showing is pretty crowded. There are only 2 seats together. Without a second's hesitation, Cindy took the 2 connected tickets, smiling sweetly at him. Her eyes curved into crescents. You and I can sit together. Let's give Monica the seat in the middle. The view is better. Before I could respond, she stuffed the ticket into my hand and pulled Grant toward the entrance. Grant glanced at me, but in the end, he didn't pull away from her. The young woman checking tickets brightened the moment she saw us. Wow, I haven't seen you and your boyfriend here in such a long time. Before I could answer, Cindy spoke first. They're just good friends. Don't misunderstand. The girl's smile immediately turned awkward. Her face flushed red. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed Grant looking at me for a brief moment. Meanwhile, Cindy pulled him forward. Every movement she made overflowed with vitality. For an instant, they looked exactly like they had back in their school days. If the readers could see the scene, they would probably be delighted. As the ticket attendant handed back the stubs, sympathy appeared in her eyes. Chapter 10. I have no idea what happened in the movie. Across from me, the 2 of them sat close together. Grant held the popcorn bucket slightly tilted toward Cindy, making it easier for her to reach in. From time to time, Cindy turned to talk to him. The corners of his lips curved upward as he listened, his eyes fixed on her attentively. Several teenage girls sitting behind us wore smiles as sweet as people watching their favorite romance unfold. For a moment, I was reminded of my first day after transferring schools. The scene from the classroom podium flashed through my mind. Back then, Grant had looked at the male and female leads exactly like this while they laughed and played together. At last, I understood how Grant had felt. It was as though a dull blade were carving into my heart, cutting over and over again, forcing me to savor every unbearable ounce of pain. After the movie ended, Cindy still wasn't satisfied. She insisted that Grant accompany her somewhere else. Grant said, Let's go to the amusement park. Cindy pouted. How old are we? Who still goes to amusement parks? He smiled. The amusement park has a Ferris wheel. Almost instantly, I lifted my head. Our eyes met. The familiar gentleness lingered in his gaze. Was it because I liked Ferris wheels? My heart immediately leaped with hope again. Unrequited love was humble. The smallest thing he didn't even think about could become something earth-shattering to me. But Cindy suddenly brightened. So you still remember that I like Ferris wheels? Do you remember? When we were little, we used to go all the time. Her voice gradually faded into the background. I lowered my eyes, hiding the loneliness and embarrassment inside them. Chapter 11. The Ferris wheel slowly rose into the sky. I sat on one side. They sat together on the other. Less than half a meter separated us, yet it felt like an uncrossable abyss stretched between us. I turned away and stared blankly at the scenery outside the window. Cindy continued chatting endlessly. Grant, did you know? There's a legend that if two people kiss at the highest point of a Ferris wheel, they'll never be separated. So she knew the legend too. Thinking about it now, it was actually the reason I loved Ferris wheels in the first place. There was a large amusement park near my orphanage. I used to cling to the window and watch the Ferris wheel turn slowly. Sometimes I'd spend an entire afternoon just watching it. Back then, I always imagined, one day, I would ride a Ferris wheel with someone I loved. At its highest point, we would kiss, and we would never be separated. I had always longed to be loved, but the only thing that ever stayed with me was loneliness. When my thoughts returned to reality, the Ferris wheel had already reached the ground. Something must have happened while I was distracted. Cindy's expression had become noticeably unpleasant. When our eyes met, I saw wariness in hers, and jealousy, a trace of jealousy. But what exactly was she jealous of? For 10 years, I had been standing in the same place, hadn't I? 10 years ago, Grant and I were friends, and now, we were still friends. I couldn't help thinking that if I had transmigrated into one of those romance conquest novels, I probably would have ended up dead. Instinctively, I glanced at Grant. The moment our eyes met, he immediately looked away. There was a hint of panic and awkwardness on his face. He raised a fist to his lips as if trying to hide something, then lowered it stiffly. He looked completely at a loss. I paused. Something definitely had happened just now. Cindy, wearing high heels, suddenly twisted her ankle. Tears welled up in her eyes. She looked at Grant pitifully. Grant let out a sigh, as though resigning himself to fate. He crouched down. Get on. Cindy smiled and immediately jumped onto his back. Her tone was playful and spoiled. You used to carry me like this all the time. What? You don't want to anymore? She wrapped her arms around Grant's neck intimately. Her face was almost brushing against his ear. Grant stiffened slightly, but he said nothing. As they walked ahead, Cindy suddenly turned around. A meaningful smile appeared on her face, as though she were mocking my failure. Chapter 12. At last, Grant seemed to realize something and turned around. Monica? I looked at him steadily. An overwhelming wave of exhaustion crashed over me. His pupils trembled. For a brief instant, I saw panic, fear, avoidance, regret. A storm of emotions flashed across his face. His hands loosened instinctively. In that moment, did he really see me as just a friend? Cindy immediately tightened her arms around his neck. Her gaze toward me turned hostile. I forced a smile. You should take her home. Xiao Hu is nearby anyway. He's coming to pick me up. Grant's lips parted. Monica. Cindy interrupted him immediately. Don't go against a lady's wishes. Monica probably has other things to do. Let's go. Grant looked at me deeply. In the end, he only said, stay safe. After returning home, I stared at the message Grant had sent. Text me when you get home safely. Curling up on the sofa, I buried myself in the cushions. Exhaustion swallowed me completely. For the first time, I didn't want to reply. Reason told me that this dream had reached its end. My mission had always been to save Grant. At first, I believed that constant companionship would eventually help him leave the past behind. But as time passed, I deliberately forgot about that mission. I buried the growing fear deeper and deeper. The mission had a deadline, but I could never understand how Grant truly felt about me. If he had feelings for me, why had nothing happened after 10 years? And if he would never love me, then how many more decades was I supposed to wait? Inside me was a bottomless void, tearing me apart. Now Cindy had returned, and she had come back for him. I could no longer keep lying to myself. Back then, I used to be frustrated with Grant. I believed that if you loved someone, you should tell them, but now, I had become exactly like him. When we love someone, we become cowards. Still, just this once, I wanted to be brave again. Chapter 13. At work, Grant arrived carrying an elegant lunchbox. One of our coworkers wiggled her eyebrows at me. Wow, you've already reached the homemade lunch stage? I forced a smile. I didn't make that. She pouted. Clearly, she didn't believe me. At lunchtime, I finally gathered my courage. My heart pounded violently in my chest, trying to keep my voice from shaking. I asked, "Do you still like Cindy?" Grant froze. His gaze drifted away for a moment. Then he met my eyes. Seeing how serious I was, he opened his mouth, but eventually lowered his head in defeat. Honestly, I don't know. The courage I had painstakingly gathered was extinguished in an instant. I stood frozen. An overwhelming sense of helplessness wrapped around me. I pressed my trembling fingertips tightly against the table, then forced a smile. I see. After that, only suffocating silence remained. After work, Grant told me he couldn't walk me home today. Cindy wasn't feeling well. He was taking her to the hospital. Outside the company building, the moment Cindy saw him, she rushed over. She wrapped herself around his arm intimately. Grant glanced at me, then subtly pulled away. Cindy's expression stiffened for a moment, but she quickly forced a smile and greeted me. "Sorry, Monica, Grant can't take you home today." I shook my head. "Your health is more important." It was like punching a pillow. Cindy's smile became awkward. Nearby coworkers whispered among themselves. When they looked at me, their eyes were filled with sympathy and pity. I laughed at myself. It felt as though my entire life had been spent being pitied by others. Chapter 14. After dinner, I went downstairs to take out the trash, and ran into an old acquaintance. "Well, if it isn't little hothead. Long time no see." I immediately took a cautious step back. "Mason? What are you doing here? What do you want?" He raised both hands in surrender. "Why are you so nervous? It's not like I'm going to do anything to you. Cindy won't answer my calls. I want you to help me contact her." I pressed my lips together. "Why would I help you?" Mason let out a mocking laugh and sauntered closer. "What? Don't tell me you're not bothered seeing those two getting back together. You like Grant, don't you? Help me out. Once I win Cindy back, you can have your chance with him." I glared at him furiously. He immediately corrected himself. Fine, not have your chance. True love, okay?" At that moment, Grant suddenly rushed out. He grabbed Mason by the collar and drove a vicious punch into his face. "What are you trying to do to her?" His teeth were clenched. There was a ferocity in his eyes I had never seen before. I stared at him blankly. For a moment, the scene overlapped with that night outside the bar, when he'd seen Mason trying to take advantage of Cindy. He had looked exactly this angry. My heart trembled uncontrollably. As if he truly cared about me. Mason staggered to his feet and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. "You again? Are you haunting me or something?" Then he pointed toward Grant. "Where's Cindy? Take me to her." Grant's voice turned cold. "Not a chance. Have you forgotten how badly you hurt her?" Knowing he was in the wrong, Mason still stubbornly protested. "That's between me and her. What's it got to do with you? Who are you to her anyway? Her boyfriend? And don't act like you're any better. You enjoy having Lil Hothead by your side, but you still can't let go of Cindy. What? You want both of them?" Grant's fingers curled slightly. His eyes lowered. His eyelashes trembled. Mason snorted disdainfully. "Don't give me that just friends nonsense. You can fool other people if you want. Just don't fool yourself." Slowly, Grant looked toward me. His gaze was dark and unreadable. His Adam's apple moved, as if he wanted to say something. "Grant, Cindy's voice suddenly rang out. His body stiffened. Whatever impulse had been building inside him instantly disappeared. Turning around, he saw Cindy running toward him. She threw herself into his arms. When I woke up at the hospital and didn't see you, I was so scared. Instinctively, he reached toward her hair, but halfway there, he stopped himself. Instead, he gently pulled her back a little. Wasn't your mother there with you? She bit her lip pitifully. But I wanted. Before she could finish, Mason rushed forward and grabbed her wrist. His eyes were filled with worry as he looked her up and down. Cindy, you were sick. Why didn't you tell me? She immediately shook off his hand. Enough. We're already broken up. Stop coming after me. Pain and desperation flashed through Mason's eyes. Cindy, I really regret everything. Please, just give me one last chance. Perhaps remembering her previous life. Cindy wasn't moved in the slightest. Instead, her eyes filled with disgust. Get lost! She screamed the words with all her strength. The force of it actually made Mason take a step back. His pupils shook. He stared at her in disbelief. Cindy's emotions had become too intense. Suddenly, she collapsed. Grant immediately caught her. Panic filled his face as he lifted her into his arms and hurried away. Mason instinctively tried to follow, but one icy glance from Grant stopped him in his tracks. Chapter 15. Grant's figure gradually disappeared from view. He never looked back. Not even once. I didn't even get the chance to ask why he had appeared here. Mason lowered his eyes. A bitter smile tugged at his lips. People always say a reformed playboy is worth his weight in gold. So why won't she forgive me? I laughed sarcastically. What's the point of bringing an umbrella after the rain has already stopped? As for reformed playboys, I only believe that a leopard can't change its spots. He stared at me in shock. Seriously? You really are a little hothead. What did I ever do to you? I turned around and started walking away, but he grabbed my arm. Instinctively, my hand moved toward my pocket. Then I froze. Mason nearly jumped out of his skin. No way. Don't tell me you carry a kitchen knife around with you. Slowly, I withdrew my hand. Yet something inside me felt empty. Ever since elementary school, I had always carried something sharp with me. On good days, it scared away some of the people who wanted to bully me. But over the past 10 years, I had gradually forgotten that habit. Because Grant was always beside me, I never had to worry about being hurt again. Looks like I'd need to get used to protecting myself again. Mason let out a long sigh. I just think we're both pathetic. Two people suffering from the same disease. I frowned. What disease? He shrugged. Being simps. I looked at him in disbelief. Didn't you spend half your life cheating on people? He immediately choked on his own words. Fine, you're the simp. Then, you stayed by Grant's side for 10 years. You didn't want his money. You didn't want fame. And the two of you spent all that time pretending not to understand what was obvious. Just friends. Just friends. What kind of friends act like you two? I fell silent for a moment. Grant and I really were friends. We weren't friends because I loved him. We became friends first. Love came later. That's why friendship would always come first. No matter whether we ever ended up together. I would always consider him my friend. He was the first person who had ever treated me this well. He gave me the companionship and care I had lacked for decades. What I felt for him was gratitude as much as love, even if he loved someone else. I could never hate him for it. Those beautiful memories were enough. A peaceful smile finally appeared on my face. My love for him is pure, and my friendship with him is just as pure. Mason froze, then muttered, "You're insane," and walked away. A stray dog happened to be passing by. Mason absent-mindedly kicked it. The dog immediately snarled and lunged at him. Ah! Mason screamed and sprinted away at full speed. I couldn't help laughing out loud. Chapter 16. I stood by the window, staring at the dark night sky. Then I sent Grant a message. Will we always be friends? On the other side, the words typing remained on the screen for a very long time. Finally, he replied. Of course. He gave me a definite answer. I had already expected it. Yet my heart still ached uncontrollably. The corners of my lips lifted slightly, but tears kept streaming down my face. What was I crying for? for the 10-year crush that had come to nothing, for the joy of knowing the mission was finally close to completion, for the happiness of seeing my friend at last find his redemption. It was time for me to go home, but it seemed I didn't have a home to return to. The next day, I resigned from my job. First, I visited Grant's parents. After so many years, I had long since come to regard them as family. Then I visited several close friends and gave them the handmade gifts I had prepared. Over the past 10 years, my life hadn't revolved entirely around Grant. I had made genuine friends, built a successful career, worked with wonderful leaders and coworkers. Maybe that was why I never became bitter or resentful. Finally, I visited the orphanage I had been supporting for years. The children there were adorable. No one was isolated. No one was bullied. How wonderful. After finishing everything I wanted to do, I boarded a plane and set off on a journey. The world was vast. I wanted to see it with my own eyes. Looking out the window at the winding snow-covered mountains below, I drifted into thought. On the night Cindy returned, I had asked the will of the world about Grant's redemption progress. Its answer had been, still at 99%. At last, I understood. Everyone wanted the devoted second male lead in the novel to find someone new, but no one had considered that. Other than the heroine. He wanted no one else. Now it seemed that final 1%, that uncrossable gulf, was something I could spend my entire life trying to bridge and still fail. After all the twists and turns, everything had returned to where it started. Cindy changing her mind and returning to him was the greatest redemption Grant could ever receive. So the only thing I could do was return to the role of a friend, quietly, silently, offering them my blessing. Chapter 17. By the time my travels ended, a month had passed. It was still autumn, but the weather had already grown cold. This year's first snowfall would probably arrive early. Grant came to pick me up. He looked thinner than before. The lines of his face had become even sharper. The cold wind swept through his trench coat, making it flutter noisily. The moment he saw me, his eyes lit up. Then he noticed how lightly dressed I was and immediately frowned. "Why are you wearing so little?" As he spoke, he reached to remove his coat. I subtly stepped back and smiled. I didn't expect the temperature to drop so suddenly. "It's fine, the car will be warm." His fingers paused halfway through unbuttoning the coat. He said nothing more. Inside the car, he turned on the heater and handed me a hand warmer. Looking around, I noticed a few feminine items scattered inside the vehicle, so I casually asked, "Why isn't Cindy with you?" His fingers tapped lightly against the steering wheel. His voice revealed nothing. "She's out with some friends." I smiled naturally. "I see." Silence settled inside the car. After a while, Grant asked casually, "Why did you suddenly quit your job?" A smile tugged at my lips, like chatting with an old friend. I answered easily, "Oh, I just wanted a break. Besides, old Zhang said I could come back anytime." Grant smiled as well. The expression softened his features. "That sounds like him. He'd never willingly let go of someone as capable as you." The two of us chatted the entire drive, as though nothing had changed. After dropping me off at home, he prepared to leave. I walked him to the elevator and tightened the blanket around my shoulders. "Your birthday," I began. He paused, then looked at me. His dark eyes reflected my image with perfect clarity. I smiled. "Your birthday is coming up. What gift would you like?" "Anything you choose is fine. I'm not picky." The elevator arrived. He stepped inside. I nodded. "Okay." Our eyes met. For a brief moment, it seemed as though countless emotions surged within his gaze. Deep, heavy, almost overwhelming. But in the next second, everything returned to calm. The elevator doors slowly closed, cutting off the last connection between us. I lowered my eyes. The smile on my face gradually disappeared. What I had really wanted to ask was, "Can we still spend your birthday together?" Maybe it would be the last time. And I knew he had understood exactly what I meant. Chapter 18. On Grant's birthday, I prepared a 2-tier cake. I decorated the apartment with colorful streamers and carefully placed a large number balloon in the center of the room. By the time I finished, I was sweating from exhaustion, but I was very satisfied with my work. I sat in front of the floor-to-ceiling window. The sun never came out that day. The sky remained gray and overcast. What a shame. I wouldn't get to watch the sunset. The daylight slowly faded into darkness. Colorful neon lights flickered to life. The city glowed brilliantly beneath the night sky. I turned my head and glanced at the cake on the table. The frosting had started to melt. The cherries decorating the top had sunk into the cream. Suddenly, the voice of the will of the world echoed in my mind. He isn't coming. The heroine and the second male lead are on a Ferris wheel together right now. You're waiting for nothing. I sat there in silence for a long moment. My gaze gradually lost focus. So that was it. The devoted second male lead had finally gotten the person he loved. At last. He had escaped the fate of spending his life alone. Perhaps this was the perfect ending readers had always wanted. A cool sensation touched my chin. I wiped it with my hand. Tears. When had I started crying? Why was I crying? I should have been happy for him. And happy for myself. So, my voice was soft. The redemption mission succeeded. Right? The will of the world remained silent for a while before finally answering. Congratulations. You can go home now. I can also grant you one wish. I smiled until my eyes curved into crescents. Then I want to become the luckiest person alive. I want endless money. I want to bathe in diamonds every day. I want to drink vintage wine from 1982. I want to drive a Ferrari with one hand. The will of the world interrupted me. I said make a wish, not fantasize. I laughed so hard that tears kept spilling from my eyes. After a long while, I suddenly remembered something. When I leave, what happens to this body? Can you make everyone forget about me? This body had been created by the will of the world. It looked exactly like me in the real world. The will's voice remained cold. No, the only outcome is physical death. I froze. What? Are you thinking about staying? Not really. I'm still leaving. I'm just worried my friends will be sad. After thinking for a moment, I posted a status update. Actually, I'm a fairy. I came down to the mortal world to complete a mission. Now that the mission is finished, I'm leaving. Don't be sad. I'll be watching over all of you. Comments immediately flooded in. What kind of nonsense are you posting now? Isn't it Grant's birthday today? Aren't you two together? Stop messing around. You're scaring people. I couldn't help smiling. Walking to the window, I carefully took in every detail of the city one last time. What a shame. I didn't get to see the first snowfall of the year. 11:59 p.m. I blew out the candles on the cake, then softly whispered, "Happy 28th birthday. From here on, I won't be by your side anymore." Chapter 19. Midnight. The Ferris wheel reached its highest point. Love filled Cindy's eyes as she looked at Grant. Grant, I've finally understood my heart. This time, I came back for you. Let's be together. Grant froze in place. His eyelashes trembled slightly. Standing on tiptoe, Cindy leaned forward and kissed him. Midnight. Monica lowered herself into the bathtub without hesitation. She cut her wrist. After thinking for a moment, she cut the other one too. Then, with a faint smile, she slowly sank beneath the water. Softly, she whispered, "Good night." The will of the world replied, "Good night." Chapter Epilogue. Chapter 1. When Monica woke up, she sat there in a daze for a long time. She muttered to herself, "Why does it feel like I slept for half a century?" Pushing open her bedroom door, she was greeted by brilliant sunshine. Stretching lazily, she got dressed and headed out for her usual morning run. As she passed a fruit stand, the vendor waved enthusiastically at her. "Young lady, I'm about to close up. Take these apples home with you." Before Monica could refuse, several apples had already been stuffed into her hands. The acceptance letter from her university arrived that same day. It was from a prestigious top-tier university. Neighbors who normally only exchanged brief greetings suddenly gathered around her, showering her with praise. Some even insisted on inviting her over for dinner. Others wanted to organize a celebration banquet for her admission. Monica stood there completely bewildered. When had she ever received treatment like this? Has luck finally decided to notice me? She scratched her head. Maybe I should buy a lottery ticket. With that thought, she walked straight into a lottery shop. When the results were announced, first prize, 50 million, For several days afterward, she wandered around in a daze, convinced she was dreaming. What she didn't know was that this extraordinary luck would stay with her for the rest of her life. Later, she entered university and made many genuine friends. They studied together, went shopping together, traveled together. No matter where they went, they were never apart. For the first time in her life, Monica was no longer lonely. She was beautiful. She excelled academically. Before long, she became the most admired girl in her department. Love letters arrived almost every day. By graduation season, countless outstanding companies extended offers to her. Yet she turned them all down. Instead, she chose a newly established startup. Thanks to her exceptional talent and hard work, she climbed the ranks rapidly. Promotion after promotion followed. Before long, she was sitting in the director's chair, and the brilliant life that belonged to Monica had only just begun. Chapter 2. In truth, the redemption mission had never succeeded. At the highest point of the Ferris wheel, Grant rejected Cindy, meeting her disbelieving gaze. He seemed to finally make up his mind. Word by word, he said, "I'm sorry, but I think I've already fallen in love with Monica." Cindy let out a shattered scream. "That's impossible. The person you love is supposed to be me." Grant lowered his eyes. "I used to think my feelings for you had never changed. But every time I was with you, the person who appeared in my thoughts was her. When she cried, my heart hurt. When she smiled, I was happy, without realizing it. The person who controlled all my emotions had already become her." Cindy stared at him blankly. Then she suddenly laughed. Yet tears streamed down her face. "What's the point of being so devoted now? After I came back, you've done nothing but hesitate. You already broke her heart. Everyone knew Monica loved you. But what about you? How many times did you disappoint her while hiding behind that ridiculous excuse of friendship? Do you really think she'd still love you? 10 years. You spent 10 whole years without getting together. And now you're saying you love her? If you're going to reject me, at least come up with a better excuse." Grant's fingers curled slightly. They were trembling. Because he knew every single word Cindy said was true. At that moment, through the Ferris wheel window, he noticed snow beginning to fall. The snowflakes drifted softly through the air like feathers. One landed on the glass and rolled slightly, as though unwilling to fall. Yet no matter how unwilling it was, it could never escape melting away. Suddenly, Grant clutched his chest. A crushing wave of fear and unease engulfed him. Ignoring Cindy's desperate calls, he stumbled out of the amusement park. The closer he got to Monica's apartment, the stronger the fear became. When he arrived downstairs, the street was filled with police cars and ambulances. His legs felt as heavy as lead. When he finally saw Monica's body, his first thought was that he had to be dreaming. How could someone so full of life be lying there without a trace of warmth? A police officer shook his head. The young woman took her own life. She cut both wrists. She must have been absolutely determined. A bitter pain surged into Grant's throat. Powerless, he collapsed to his knees. His eyes were completely unfocused. Looking around, he saw that the birthday streamers she had hung for him were still there. No one had taken them down. The cake had melted from the heat of the room. Leaning awkwardly to one side, the warm decorations in the living room stood in horrifying contrast to the vivid red staining the bathroom. When grief became overwhelming enough, it turned out tears wouldn't come. A friend approached with reddened eyes and handed him a piece of paper. "I think this was left for you." After seeing Monica's post, I felt uneasy. I wanted to come keep her company, but when I arrived, her voice broke. She couldn't continue. Grant accepted the note with trembling hands. The handwriting was familiar. It was Monica's. "Grant, I wasn't lying to you. I really am a fairy. Don't be sad for me. I'm just going home. Congratulations to my friend for finally getting what he wanted. May everything in your life unfold as you wish. And may joy accompany you always." At last, he broke. Kneeling on the floor, he cried like a child. The sobs were so violent that he could barely speak. "How could I forget?" His voice shattered. "She was always waiting for me." A nearby police officer glanced at him before turning to Monica's friend. Was he the deceased's boyfriend? The friend laughed softly. The sound carried unmistakable mockery. No, just a friend. The officer frowned. Then why is he crying like he just lost his wife? The friend looked at Grant for a long moment. Then she replied quietly, "Who knows? Yes. For 10 entire years. They had remained nothing more than friends, even in grief. He had no right to claim her." Chapter 3. Grant resigned from his job, carrying Monica's ashes with him. He retraced every step of her travel itinerary. As if he had lost his mind, he searched desperately for every trace she had ever left behind, any place she had visited, any scenery she had admired, any memory she might have treasured. He wanted to find them all. No one could persuade him to stop. His friends wanted to scold him, wanted to ask why he hadn't realized the truth sooner. But every time the words reached their lips, they swallowed them back, because Grant and Monica had never even been together. That fact lodged in their throats like a bone, impossible to remove, impossible to forget. Mason, meanwhile, mocked him without mercy. So what now? Bringing an umbrella after the rain is already over? A bitter smile appeared on his face. Monica once said that to me. Now I'm giving those words to you. No need to thank me. In the end, everything returned to where it had started. Grant never escaped the fate of spending his life alone. Cindy and Mason remained trapped in their endless cycle, breaking apart, getting back together, hurting each other, repeating the same mistakes. Their future was easy to foresee. Nothing had truly changed. They were merely reliving the same story again and again. So why is it that people only learn regret after something is gone? Cindy was like that. Mason was like that. And Grant was no different. 10 years. 10 years spent chasing redemption. Yet not a single person found it. Everyone was simply walking in circles inside a destiny that had already been written. Perhaps that is what it means to be human. No matter which choice we make, some regrets remain forever. This was a failed redemption story. But Monica was not a failure. Her feelings remained as pure as they had always been. From beginning to end. She never changed. She loved sincerely. She gave wholeheartedly. And she asked for nothing in return. People who offer their hearts so honestly deserve happiness. And in the end, Monica found hers. Back in the world where she belonged. Surrounded by friends. Blessed with extraordinary luck. Free from loneliness. Free from waiting. Free from heartbreak. Perhaps the redemption mission failed. Perhaps Grant was never saved. But Monica saved herself. And sometimes, that is the most important redemption of all.